Hey there. Imagine a birthday celebration. Not just cake and candles, though. Think a quarter century of fighting for human rights. That's exactly what WOTCLF is doing right now. WOTCLF is the Women Trafficking and Child Labor Eradication Foundation. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really is. Amina Titi Abubakar founded the organization back in 1999. They've been tackling human trafficking and child labor in Nigeria ever since.
That's a really tough issue.
It is. And we've got some pretty fascinating material to dive into today. A speech by Atiku Abubakar. He's the former vice president of Nigeria. And he spoke at WOTCLF's 25th anniversary event.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. You ready to get into it?
Absolutely.
So Atiku's speech, well, it gives us a really unique perspective on WTCLF's journey, especially because he's the founder's husband.
Right. It's not just a political speech. It's deeply personal.
Yeah, you can totally hear the pride and admiration in his voice when he talks about his wife's dedication.
Yeah.
He even calls her a voice for the voiceless. I know, it's really moving. But before we get too deep into the speech itself, I think it's worth stepping back for a second and looking at the historical context. When WOTCLF was founded, back in 1999, that was a year of major transition for Nigeria.
Oh, yeah.
The country was moving towards democracy.
Right.
After years of military rule.
That's a big deal.
It is.
Imagine the atmosphere then. So much hope and possibility in the air, that kind of political shift. It creates fertile ground for social change.
I see what you mean.
People are more energized,
Right.
more motivated
Mm-hmm.
to address these long-standing issues.
Right.
And new opportunities open up for organizations like WTCLF to emerge.
Okay, so we've got this backdrop of change and optimism, and then enter Atiku Abubakar. He's celebrating his wife's achievements, but he also highlights a key figure in WTCLF's early success, former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Atiku really emphasizes Obasanjo's support for the WOTCLF bill.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, how vital was that presidential backing, do you think?
Oh, it was absolutely essential, especially for a young organization. Think about it. Having the president on your side, it brings instant legitimacy, opens doors that might have stayed closed otherwise.
Yeah, it's like a stamp of approval from the highest office in the land.
Exactly. It signals to everyone that combating human trafficking and child labor, well, it's a national priority.
Right.
It likely paved the way for funding, resources, collaborative opportunities that WOTCLF might not have accessed otherwise.
It's like that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly.
And it wasn't just about a single presidency either. Atiku makes sure to acknowledge the contributions of subsequent presidents to the fight against human trafficking and child labor. He even specifically mentions the 2015 reestablishment of NAPDP. That's the National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons.
Wow. That's a really important point. It underscores that tackling these deeply ingrained issues, it requires sustained political will.
Right.
It's not about one administration coming in, making a splash, and then moving
I
on.
see what you mean.
It's about a long-term commitment from the government, no matter who's in power.
Right.
That's the only way to make real progress on such a complex problem.
So we're starting to see a pattern here. Personal dedication, meeting political support, all within a climate of broader societal change. But let's zoom in a little. What were some of the concrete actions WOTCLF took during those early years? What were those first steps to translate that political support into real-world impact?
Well, one of their most impactful early moves, shining a light on the hidden world of human trafficking and child labor. They understood that awareness is the first step towards change.
Right.
You can't fight what you don't acknowledge.
And they didn't shy away from tough conversations. Atiku mentions that his wife, well, she recognized the urgency of becoming a voice for the voiceless, those who were trapped in these situations.
Yeah, that's so powerful. Imagine the courage it took to speak out against these deeply entrenched practices. Especially back then, these issues were often shrouded in silence.
Absolutely. But they didn't stop at raising awareness. They took concrete action to help survivors rebuild their lives.
How so?
Well, Atiku highlights the establishment of shelters and rehabilitation centers. They offered physical safety, but also counseling, medical care, and even vocational training.
That's crucial. It's one thing to talk about rescuing people, but it's quite another to provide the long-term support they need to heal and reintegrate into society.
Exactly. It's about empowering survivors to take back control of their lives. It's about addressing not just the immediate crisis, but the deep, lasting trauma that these experiences inflict.
Right, and that's where WOTCLF's community development programs come in. They realized that to truly make a dent in these issues, they had to address the root causes. Poverty, lack of education, social inequality. These often create a breeding ground for exploitation.
It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet. By just mopping up the water, you have to address the source of the leak. So, WTCLF started working directly with communities to tackle those underlying issues, providing education, skills training, economic opportunities, helping people build better lives for themselves and their families.
Exactly. Prevention is just as important as intervention.
Absolutely.
And they took a multi-pronged approach, collaborating with local communities, government agencies, and international organizations, creating a network of support.
This whole idea of collaboration, it seems to be woven through every aspect of WTCLF's work.
It makes sense. These are complex issues, requiring expertise from various sectors. No single organization can solve them alone.
Right.
WOTCLEF recognized that from the beginning, working with law enforcement to crack down on traffickers, partnering with educators to raise awareness among young people, collaborating with NGOs to provide social services.
I'm struck by how their approach goes beyond just rescue and rehabilitation. They're looking at the entire ecosystem that allows these practices to thrive, trying to create systemic change.
Right. That's a really insightful observation. It's about shifting the entire landscape, making it harder for traffickers to operate, and easier for communities to resist exploitation. It's not about imposing solutions from the outside. It's about working hand in hand with communities to develop sustainable solutions that meet their specific needs.
Okay, so we've talked about the political backing, the focus on awareness, and the importance of community-level work. But what about the challenges? Surely they didn't achieve all of this without hitting some roadblocks. What were some of the hurdles they had to overcome? And what can we learn from how they navigated those challenges?
One of the biggest challenges they faced, and continue to face, is the sheer scale and complexity of these issues. Human trafficking and child labor are global problems, with deeply entrenched networks and systems that are hard to break.
Yeah.
They had to be incredibly strategic in their approach, choosing their battles carefully, focusing their resources on areas where they could make the biggest impact.
That makes sense. You can't tackle everything at once, especially when you're a relatively small organization going up against powerful forces.
Right. And they also had to adapt constantly. Think about how much the world has changed in the past 25 years, especially with technology and globalization. These changes create new avenues for traffickers to operate and exploit people. So WOTCLEF has had to stay ahead of the curve, constantly evolving their strategies to stay effective.
So it's not enough to just have a good plan. You need to be flexible and adaptable, constantly learning and refining your approach.
Exactly. And another challenge they faced, which is something many organizations struggle with, is securing consistent funding. These types of social programs require long-term investment, and it can be a constant battle to secure the necessary resources.
It's like you need a solid foundation to build on, but sometimes that foundation can feel a little shaky, especially when you're relying on grants or donations.
Right. But what's remarkable about WOTCL is that they persevered. They didn't give up when things got tough. They kept pushing forward, building relationships, and advocating for change. And that, I think, is one of the biggest takeaways from their story. Resilience and persistence are essential when tackling such deeply ingrained issues.
And I think it's also about passion. You can really hear the passion in Atiku's voice when he talks about WOTCLF's work. It's clear that this isn't just a job for the people involved, it's a calling.
Absolutely. And that passion is contagious. It inspires others to get involved, to support the cause, and to believe that change is possible. But passion alone isn't enough. You need a solid strategy, a willingness to collaborate, and the flexibility to adapt to changing circumstances.
So it's this potent combination of passion, strategic thinking, and adaptability that has allowed WOTCLF to not only survive, but thrive for 25 years.
Precisely. Their journey offers valuable lessons for anyone working in the social sector, showing that even in the face of immense challenges, progress is possible. When you have the right mix of dedication, collaboration, and a willingness to embrace change.
Now, as we think about WOTCLF's incredible journey, I want to shift our focus a little bit and bring it closer to home. What does this all mean for our listener? What can we as individuals learn from their story and apply to our own lives?
WOTCLEF's story, it reminds us we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world.
It can feel overwhelming sometimes, though, right?
Yeah.
To think about tackling huge issues like human trafficking and child labor.
Yeah.
But change starts with small steps.
Absolutely.
You don't have to become an international activist overnight. It's about finding those entry points in your own life where you can make a difference.
Exactly. Maybe it's volunteering your time at a local organization, one that supports vulnerable communities. Or maybe it's educating yourself about these issues and having conversations with friends and family.
To raise awareness. And think about the skills and resources you already have. How can you leverage them to make a positive impact?
Right. Like maybe you're a great writer. You could volunteer to create content for an anti-trafficking organization.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Or maybe you're a social media whiz. You could help amplify their message and reach a wider audience.
And don't underestimate the power of simply being informed. The more you understand about these issues, the better equipped you'll be to spot the signs of exploitation,
Right.
advocate for change, and support those organizations working on the front lines.
Absolutely. Every action, no matter how small, contributes to a larger movement.
That's a good point.
Think about it this way. Each time you choose to buy fair trade products, or donate to a reputable charity, or speak out against injustice, you're casting a vote for a better world.
It's like those ripples in a pond. Your actions, however small they may seem, they can create a ripple effect that spreads outwards and influences others to do the same.
That's a great analogy. And it's also important to remember that change takes time. WOTCLEF has been working at this for 25 years, and the fight is far from over.
Yeah.
There will be setbacks and challenges along the way, but it's important to stay persistent and keep pushing for progress.
What would you say to someone who's feeling discouraged because they're not seeing results immediately?
I would say don't give up. Keep learning. Keep engaging. Keep supporting those organizations that are making a difference. And celebrate those victories, big and small.
I like that.
Every life saved, every child protected, every community empowered. It's a testament to the power of collective action.
So we've come to the end of our deep dive into WOTCLEF's incredible 25-year journey, and we're left with this question. What will your contribution be? What actions will you take to create a ripple effect of positive change in the world? Thanks for joining us. Until next time.